Online game, I possess a monster merging simulator. Chapter 31, Little Fairy gets blinded by anger. Next, in order to farm more monsters more effectively, Lorne decided to split into two groups to search separately, reducing the time wasted. The first pair were Lorne and Rimuru. Although his attributes were very ordinary, with Limu around, it was very easy to deal with a group of armored lizards. The second group consisted of the Mantis and the Minotaur. Both of them had excellent combat strength. It was too easy to fight these armored lizards. Just like that, the two teams began to madly sweep through the area. Under the terrifying output, the armored lizards could not resist at all. One by one, the monsters fell to the ground, giving Lorne rich experience points. White iron. No need. This is a bronze equipment. I'll take it away. Bronze coins, my favorite. With Rimuru by his side, Lorne was like a machine cleaning up the battlefield. He only needed to pick up equipment along the way, so the experience points and items in his bag piled up gradually. However, because he had killed too many monsters, his bag was full. Low-grade white iron items were basically abandoned in the forest. As for the worthless bronze coins, due to the lack of picking restrictions, they became Lorne's favorite loot in this battle. As he picked up the loot, he calculated his efficiency in killing the monsters. He discovered that ever since Little Mantis level increased, his efficiency in farming monsters had grown tremendously. In the beginning, including the time wasted in finding monsters, he could kill 3 armored lizards per minute. However, after Little Mantis reached level 3, he could harvest 4 armored lizards per minute. With such efficiency, he could quickly raise the levels of the pets around him to level 10. It was a happy thought. However, a battle where he did not have to deal damage was not challenging at all. After a while, Lorne felt bored. In order to get accustomed to such a lifestyle, he opened the game's internal forum and checked the latest news while cleaning up the battlefield. On the main page of the discussion forum, there was information regarding the latest dungeon Valley of the Dead. Blazing Flame Guild failed to clear the hard difficulty dungeon. Everyone has died. The Experienced Guild, Guild of Creation, failed to clear the hard difficulty dungeon. Exploration, 55%. 5 top experts of the Dynasty Guild joined forces to explore the Valley of the Dead and died at the 50% mark. Thunder God Guild was wiped out in the hard difficulty dungeon. Today's posts were basically all related to the dungeon. Almost all of the guilds attempted to challenge the dungeon, but in the end, they all failed. What was even more shocking was that they had all fallen by the 50% progress of the dungeon. It could be imagined how difficult the Hell and Nightmare difficulty dungeons would be in the future. But that was to be expected. After all, the current players had just reached level 10 and had yet to improve their equipment. Their strength was very limited. Moreover, this was the first dungeon in the entire server. The rewards inside were so rich. If the players could clear it easily, it would be too boring. Lorne continued to look for posts concerning the situation within the dungeon, but did not find the information he needed. In the dungeon, ordinary players would not be able to come into contact with the core part and would be killed by the monsters. To large guilds, the information of the dungeon was very important. Before this dungeon was cleared, they would not reveal the information. At this moment, his friend list lit up again. Needless to say, he only had one good friend now, and that was Twinkle Rose. Tyrant, do you have a moment? What is it? Lorne replied. Oh, it's like this. During this period of time, my guild has been challenging the hard difficulty dungeons but kept failing. At this point, Twinkle Rose paused. Clearly, she could not bring herself to say such a thing. They had been challenging the dungeon since a few hours ago, but they had still gained nothing. To her, the confident beautiful guild leader, this result was too shameful. Lorne took the initiative to ask, and I want to hire you to challenge an instance dungeon with me. If you really can't do it, then we can only give up temporarily and try it after changing to higher grade equipment. Twinkle Rose suggested. She felt that the Tyrant was the person who could help her the most. After all, he had killed the first boss in the entire server and had 3 mutated pets. If even he could not pass, then no one could obtain the first clear of the dungeon in a short time. Hearing this, Lorne was attracted to the word higher. How much will you pay? If we only enter the hard difficulty dungeon, if we don't clear it, I will give you 20,000 as employment fees. However, if we clear the dungeon, I will give you $200,000. How about it? The price that Twinkle Rose offered was very generous. This was the amount that top experts in the Hall of Fame would receive. It could be considered a high acknowledgement of Lorne. However, in the next second, her eyes widened. This was because of the reply she received, "What if it's hell or nightmare?" Twinkle Rose rubbed her eyes. She even suspected that she was seeing things. That evil guy not only wanted to clear the dungeon, but he also wanted to clear the hell or even the nightmare difficulty dungeon. Was he mad? Twinkle Rose had 2 hours of experience in the dungeon and knew the situation inside. The top players of the guild only lasted for 4 waves of monsters before they were wiped out. To be honest, according to her thoughts, even if she roped in Tyrant, the probability of clearing the dungeon was very low. Her initial goal was to see the difficulty of the later levels in advance and prepare for the next official raid. But now, she heard that someone wanted to clear the Hell dungeon or even the Nightmare dungeon. It completely subverted her worldview. Big Busted Sister, are you there? Big Busted. Seeing this title, Twinkle Rose gritted her teeth. This Tyrant was really detestable. Good. Since you like to brag so much, this lady will play with you. Let's see what else you can brag about. Thinking of this, the corners of Twinkle Rose's mouth curled up. Can you really clear a hell difficulty dungeon? No, nightmare is my goal. You sure talk big. If you can help me clear the hell dungeon, I'll give you 500,000. For a nightmare clear, 1 million. I'll keep my word. $500,000 was enough to buy a top-grade branded bag. Twinkle Rose felt that she was really foolish at this moment. It was not because she had spent $500,000 to hire someone to lead the team, but because she actually believed that the other party had hope of clearing the hell dungeon. Oh, lovely fairy, you must be blinded by anger. Chapter 32, Leading a Team for the First Kill, Register while you can. Hell level for 500,000? Nightmare level for 1 million? Lorne was shocked by the amount. Perhaps it was because he had been living at the bottom all these years, but the figure of $1 million was hard to imagine. Of course, in the game, spending 1 million to find someone to help one clear the dungeon was also an incredible thing. This was definitely a shocking scene in other games. Thus, Lorne was undoubtedly stunned. He looked at the message and thought for a long time. Only 10 minutes later did he reply to the message. In 3 hours, I will challenge the dungeon. Be prepared. Lorne stated his plan. On the other side, Twinkle Rose paused, then quickly replied, "No problem. Our Silver Snow Guild sisters are all ready." You may be mistaken. There are some things that I must clarify in advance. First of all, the price of clearing Nightmare level is 1 million per person. Secondly, it's not you who hired me this time. It's you who bought the right to join the team. After entering the dungeon, I'll be in full command. All the equipment, skill books, and items dropped in the dungeon will be mine. Lorne stated his rules. This was the first dungeon in the entire game. If one obtained the first clear of this dungeon and went on the system announcement, it would be an advertisement for players all over the world. The mere price of 1 million or even 4 million was not a problem. But at this point, Twinkle Rose could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Not only was Tyrant abominable, he was also very greedy. How worthless did he think money was to quote 1 million for a position? You'd better make a decision quickly. I'm about to issue an announcement to start advertising. Don't blame me for not reminding you if you don't get a spot later. No spots? Are you sure? Right now, all the top guilds in the world can't even clear the hard dungeon. Do you think someone will believe that you can clear the nightmare dungeon and use $1 million to buy a spot in the dungeon? Twinkle Rose felt that this guy was crazy. Of course. Anyway, I've already explained the situation. Think about it yourself. Bye-bye, big busted sister. Glitter Rose gritted her teeth as she read the final reply. She did not know what was wrong with her. She actually felt like believing him. Although Tyrant was a scoundrel, his strength was very real. After all, he had once killed a boss with 5,000 health in just a few seconds. Thinking of this, Twinkle Rose felt even more conflicted. However, she did not contact Tyrant immediately, because she felt that no one would believe that guy, much less spend $1 million to buy a spot. When they were about to enter the dungeon, that guy's price would definitely decrease. At that time, she could save some money. On the other side, after talking to Twinkle Rose, Lorne opened the chat channel of the beginner village. Chatting here required 1 silver coin each time. To issue a notice here, 1 gold coin was needed every time. This time, Lorne did not save. In his eyes, what he was about to do was worth a few million. It was only right for him to spend a few gold coins to advertise. Soon, a long announcement was made. Beginner Village announcement, from player Tyrant. Please note that this god tier player is about to take the first clear of the Nightmare Dungeon in 3 hours. If anyone wants to join the team, you can chat with me privately about the rules. Beginner Village announcement, from player Tyrant. Beginner Village announcement. Right now, the highest price on the black market for a gold coin was 5,000 Alliance dollars. Lorne had swiped it 10 times in a row, and the total cost added up to $50,000. When the players in the beginner village saw this information, the entire chat channel was in an uproar. Did I see wrongly? Did he say Nightmare Dungeon? That's right, it's the Nightmare Dungeon. Gosh, is Tyrant crazy? Even the top guilds in the world haven't passed the hard level yet. Does he think he can clear a Nightmare Dungeon alone? Is this a joke? I think this is a scam. That's the truth. I'm dying of laughter. What kind of stupid child would believe such nonsense? A lot of the rich second-generation heirs of large corporations are brainless. He might really be able to fool a few. Ha 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 ha, you're right. In the depths of the valley, after sending the announcement, Lorne continued killing monsters. $1 million per position was not a small number. No one would choose to do this in the short term. Lorne did not mind. Even if there was no one, he could still contact the Twinkle Rose and give it to her for $1 million. No matter what, he would not lose anything. As for why he had to set the time limit to 3 hours later, there was a reason, of course. He wanted to raise his pets' levels. Even if he could not level up Rimuru, the other 2 pets had to reach level 10. Otherwise, the damage output of the team would not be enough. And so, with his pets, Lorne continued his trek through the forest. During this period, countless people wanted to add him as a friend. But most of them were not his target. As he checked his friend requests, Lorne cleaned up the battlefield where Rimuru passed. After more than 2 hours, there was still no sign of any rich person who wanted to collaborate. Instead, Little Mantis's level kept rising during this period of time. Under a few golden lights, it directly reached level 10. Ding! You used 13,000 experience points to raise your pet Death Scythe Mantis, Little Mantis to level 8. You used 15,000 experience points to raise your pet to level 9. You used 17,000 experience points to raise your pet to level 10. Due to the pet being unable to surpass the level of the summoner, your pet Death Scythe Mantis, Little Mantis cannot continue to level up. Please try to level up. The pet's level could not surpass that of the summoner, so level 10 was the limit. As a bronze grade monster with an additional bonus from its superiority, Little Mantis definitely had an astonishing growth. Coupled with the fact that Little Mantis was one of the main damage dealers in the dungeon, it was much more important than the Minotaur. Its strength would also greatly affect the success rate of clearing the dungeon. Therefore, Lorne was also looking forward to it. He took a deep breath and opened its attributes panel. Chapter 33, A Gift from a Tycoon. Death Scythe Mantis, Little Mantis. Grade, Bronze. Level, 10, 0/38,000. HP, 4200/4200. Physical attack, 385 to 490. Defense, 175. Superiority, 80%. Owner, Tyrant. Skills, Sharp Blade, Continuous Slash, Scythe of Death, High Speed Movement. It could be seen that after Little Mantis reached level 10, its attributes had been greatly improved. With its current attack limit of 490 points, combined with the damage of its skills, it was definitely superior to Rimuru in terms of DPS. It was indeed worthy of being the main damage dealer of the team. Moreover, it gained another skill at level 10. Skill, High Speed Movement. Effect, increases movement speed by 100%. Duration, 3 seconds. It was a very practical skill. Although it was not teleportation, acceleration could still increase the upper limit of mobility in battle, especially when fighting against ranged bosses. High-speed movement could effectively avoid damage. However, after level 10, the EXP requirement for pets became abnormally high. Little Mantis needed 38,000 to level up to 11. According to this number, for Rimuru, the EXP needed to reach that level should be 95,000 points. Just thinking about it was terrifying. After seeing Little Mantis's attributes, Lorne opened his pet space. Slime King, Alchemy, Rimuru level 5, 0/22,500. Death Scythe Mantis, Little Mantis level 10, 0/38,000. Giant Axe Minotaur, Minotaur 1 level 7, 0/6,500. The EXP that his pets needed was astonishingly high, but fortunately, they were all mature pets and had learned to kill monsters themselves. This was commendable. After I raise the Minotaur's level to 10, I can return to the village. The combat power of summoners depended on their pets. In order to clear the Nightmare Dungeon, Lorne needed them to be powerful enough. Therefore, he still needed to stay here for a period of time. At that moment, Lorne, who was checking the friend request list, suddenly saw something that made his eyes light up. Player Super Rich requests to add you as a friend. Additional information, I have a pet space expansion gem. God tier player, please add me as a friend. Pet space expansion gem? The name of this tool was too tempting for a summoner. He eagerly accepted the request. The next moment, this player called Super Rich sent over the information of the Pet Space Expansion Gem. Item, Pet Space Expansion Gem. Quality, Epic. Effect, after using it, player's pet space +1. It was really a tool that could increase the pet space. Lorne had not expected to see such a precious item. One had to know that this thing did not even exist in the hands of Priestess Laisha. It was incredible that a beginner village player like him had one. Friend, how much are you selling this gem for? Lorne asked nervously. This kind of special treasure was definitely not cheap. Furthermore, the other party took the initiative to look for him, clearly knowing that he needed this item. Under such circumstances, even if this fellow asked for 1,000 gold coins, it was completely normal. However, such a high price would give him a headache. He did not have that much money now. This isn't for sale. Not for sale? He showed the item but did not want to sell it. Was it to show off? Or was that guy purely trying to disgust him? Thinking of this, Lorne was a little unhappy. He had the urge to capture that guy and beat him up. But at that moment, the player called Super Rich replied. God tier player, don't misunderstand. I bought this gem specially for you. For me. What kind of trick was this? At this, Lorne grew wary. The man had to be up to something to give the gem away for free. Yes, for you. There's no need to doubt it. The reason is very simple. I've been rich for too long, so I don't feel anything in reality. This time, when I entered the virtual game, I felt that the world was very wonderful, so I wanted to explore this world. But you know that as I get older, my hand-eye coordination is incomparable to that of young people. It's very difficult to have fun in this world, so I wanted to find someone to bring me along to play. However, this is our first time meeting, so I had to prepare something. I bought this gemstone as a greeting gift. I hope that you won't mind it. Super Rich explained. Lorne understood his intention now. To super rich merchants, as long as something could be bought in reality, they would possess it. They no longer had any interest in a normal life. However, Divine Realm was a 100% virtual reality game that was full of the otherworldly style. To humans, it was an exciting spiritual world. Especially to wealthy people like Super Rich who were sick of living in reality, it had an irresistible temptation. Everything can be discussed. Lorne answered happily. Originally, he would definitely not have agreed to such a request, but he had to admit that this greeting gift did make him have a better impression of Super Rich. It also gave him a new idea regarding the fees he wanted to collect for bringing people to clear the dungeon. The value of the gemstone far exceeded that of a dungeon slot. After all, money could be earned at any time, but such an epic quality gemstone could only be found by chance. As he thought this, Super Rich said, God tier player, I heard you're going to challenge the Nightmare Dungeon recently. Can you bring me along? Although I'm not very good at playing, don't worry. I can pay an extra 100,000 Alliance dollars on top of your listed price. I don't want anything, I just want to be on the system announcement. Lorne thought he had misheard. An epic quality pet space expansion gem plus $1.1 million. How could he refuse? How could he find a reason to reject him? No problem. Wait in the village. I'll be right back. Lorne added the other party as a friend, who sent 1.1 million Alliance dollars into his virtual bank immediately, and at this moment, he also increased the speed at which he killed monsters in the valley. Now, he had $1 million and was about to obtain a pet space expansion gem. This was definitely a pleasant surprise. To Lorne, the overall value was much higher than the dungeon slot price of 4 million. Half an hour later, after obtaining enough EXP in the valley, he returned to the beginner village. On the way, he raised the Minotaur's level to 10. Giant Axe Minotaur, Minotaur 1. Quality, Elite. Level, 10, 0/19,000. HP, 2800/2800. Physical attack, 175 to 245. Defense, 70. Superiority, 80%. Skills, Powerful Battle Axe, Charge, Battle Axe Sweep. Introduction. Its attributes were not bad, and it also gained the skill Battle Axe Sweep. The effect was to deal 100% damage to all targets within 2 yards. It was a skill with good AoE damage. However, that was not Lorne's focus now. All he wanted to do now was return to the village and get the gemstone from Super Rich. Chapter 34, Group Assembled, Time to Move Out. Soon, Lorne returned to the village. At this moment, the beginner village was very lively. People appeared on the resurrection array one after another. They were all players who had failed the dungeon and revived in the village. However, failure did not affect their fighting spirit. This group of players still rushed towards the wilderness excitedly. They went to level up. After they finished leveling up, they would still enter the dungeon. This was all because in the dungeon, the drop rate of monsters had increased. Although the value of the white iron equipment had decreased, to ordinary players, the income from being able to drop a piece of equipment had reached the expected amount. Passing through the streets, Lorne arrived at his destination. In the corner of the village square, he found Super Rich. "Greetings, God-tier player. This is my greeting gift." An ordinary-looking middle-aged man smiled as he walked over with a gem. This treasure that was worth at least a few $100,000 was like a useless rock in his hands. He handed it to Lorne without hesitation. Moreover, this middle-aged tycoon did not have the arrogance of a big shot. At this moment, he was more like an admirer of Lorne. If one only looked at him this way, it was hard to imagine that this ordinary-looking middle-aged man could casually toss out $1 million. "You're too polite." Grinning, Lorne accepted the gem. He used it directly. Ding! Congratulations on obtaining pet space +1. After a pleasant reminder, Lorne gained a new pet space. This way, he could contract another pet. But now was not the time. He had to create a team first. Then, he gathered the remaining few people. Although he did not need the help of his teammates, he needed money. In order to give his sister the best treatment, he needed a lot of money. Ding! Player Super Rich Level 1 has joined the team. Only Level 1? Lorne was surprised to see the notification. This rich player was too weak. The game had been on for more than 24 hours and he was only Level 1. Had he been traveling the entire day? Super Rich smiled awkwardly. "I'm old and don't know how to play. I originally killed pheasants and reached Level 2, but after I walked out of the wheat field, I was quickly bitten to death by the demonized wild dogs. Don't worry. Just follow behind the team and don't wander around." Lorne casually replied. In any case, he did not want to rely on the teammates he recruited. After all, they could not even clear hard dungeons. They were too weak. "All right, leader. I won't wander around." Super Rich smiled and nodded. He then asked, "Should we challenge the dungeon now? Wait a while longer. There are still a few people left." There was still half an hour to go before the appointed time. As for the Twinkle Rose, Lorne did not ask. Since he had already sold a ticket, her choice was not important anymore. Besides, he had already discussed this with her. If she did not plan to join in, there was no way that he would force her. But at that moment, Super Rich said something astonishing. "Leader, why don't we stop waiting? I'll buy the remaining spots. The two of us will go clear the dungeon now. When the full server announcement appears, it will be even more shocking to see only 2 names on it." When he thought of the scene of the two of them clearing the dungeon on their own, Super Rich felt inexplicably excited, as if the cost was nothing to him. Lorne's expression grew odd. In order to save time, this man was planning to use $3 million Alliance dollars to buy the other spots. It had to be said that the mind of the richest man was very different from that of a normal person. But that seemed a little immoral. While it was exciting to fleece a rich man, it was not in his nature to fleece one person over and over. It would be best to wait until the outcome was decided, then reluctantly accept his offer. "Don't worry. It'll be another half an hour before my promise expires. All right then, I'll try to recruit some people. If we can't recruit anyone in this half an hour, then the two of us will enter the dungeon." "No problem." Lorne nodded. He could understand the thought of Super Rich. After all, he never lacked money. What he lacked was time. If he had half an hour extra in reality, the money he earned would be 10 times of 4 million, or even more. Just as Lorne was feeling rueful, a series of announcements suddenly appeared in the Beginner Village's chat channel. "Brothers, our leader Tyrant is preparing to take the first clear of Valley of the Dead. There are still 3 spots left, going at 1 million Alliance dollars each. Friends who are interested, don't hesitate and quickly join the team. Here, I Super Rich solemnly promise that if we fail to clear it, I will refund all of you. +1. Brothers, +2. Brothers, +3. Brothers, +4. Brothers, +100. Starting from the first announcement, the chat of the beginner village had been refreshing non-stop. Half an hour later, there were 100 new announcements. The players were dumbfounded. One had to know that every chat notification in the beginner village cost 1 gold coin. 100 announcements cost 100 gold coins. According to the highest price of the black market, this was 500,000 alliance dollars. In an instant, the name Super Rich became popular in the game. Everyone knew of this person. Furthermore, no one would doubt his words. Although 3 million was a large sum of money to ordinary people, it was nothing compared to a tycoon's wealth. Seeing this situation, the players who were still wavering began to be tempted. 10 minutes after the announcement, someone contacted Lorne and took the initiative to pay him 1 million alliance dollars as the ticket cost. At that moment, a message came from Twinkle Rose. I want the remaining 3 spots. I'll transfer you the money now. I'm sorry, big busted sister. I received 2 invoices a second before you sent the message. There's only 1 slot left. Lorne sent her 3 cigar emojis, as if mocking her. Damn little brother. Twinkle Rose gritted her teeth, resisting the urge to curse as she requested, I want the last spot. Soon, Lorne received the last transfer, and the 5-person team was officially completed. The group met in the beginner village and headed to the dungeon entrance of Valley of the Dead. Chapter 35, Entering the Valley of the Dead. Inviting skilled players with more than 200 attack to join us. We need a high-level priest who can heal over 150. We're short of 1. You need to have long-range DPS, priority given to those with 50 agility points. Beauty, is your team lacking a tank? My defense is 80+. At the dungeon entrance, there were shouts of players forming teams everywhere. Currently, all the players treated this place as a holy ground for dropping equipment. In order to reach farther, it was necessary to organize a powerful team. At this moment, the appearance of the team led by Lorne immediately caused the surrounding players to gasp. Everyone looked over. Tyrant is going to challenge the dungeon. Is he really going to challenge the Nightmare Dungeon? Take a guess. How many minutes until they're wiped out? They'll probably be killed once they enter. Right now, all the top players in the world are unable to get through the hard dungeon. They are simply courting death by going to the Nightmare Dungeon. I don't think so. Tyrant is no ordinary player. He's the man who killed the boss in 5 seconds. He should be able to make it past 20% of the dungeon. Do you think Tyrant is joking when he said he'll pass it? 20%? What a joke. That's right. I think he should have enough confidence. Even if he can't clear it, he must have at least 80% progress. Pfft. 80%? Look at that warrior in their team. He's the super rich who made the 100 announcements. He's only level 1, I can't help but laugh. Hey! That's not right. The requirement to enter the dungeon seems to be level 10, right? How can he enter the dungeon at level 1? At this moment, everyone's eyes were on Super Rich. In the team, Twinkle Rose and the other 2 members also realized that the Super Tycoon beside them was only level 1. Sensing that everyone was looking at him, Super Rich hurriedly smiled and said, I was too excited to team up with the god tier player and forgot to do something. With that said, he took out a medicinal herb from his bag. Everyone who had completed a mission in the village knew about this tool. This was the experience medicinal herb obtained by the medicinal shop's merchant after completing a mission. Consuming one would give 100 experience points. Because everyone could only complete this mission once, the appearance of the experience medicinal herb did not cause much of a commotion. But it had a different significance to Super Rich. He took out one herb after another from his bag and chewed them. This was very funny, like seeing a wild ox eating grass. However, what made people speechless was that while chewing the herbs, the words experience points plus 100 kept flashing above his head. Then, 10 rays of light shone on Super Rich. In less than 10 seconds, his level increased from level 1 to level 10. Seeing this scene, there was silence. The onlookers were dumbfounded. This was the first time they had seen someone level up like this. Was this how rich people played games? How much did you pay for this herb? Beside him, Lorne asked. Right now, Rimuru was only level 5. If possible, Lorne wanted to raise it to level 10. If he could do this, then he would have even more confidence in challenging the dungeon. It's very cheap, only $500 per herb. Leader, do you want some? I still have over 100 herbs here. Forget it. Lorne shook his head, speechless. This was not a game he could afford to play. The experience value of a single medicinal herb was 100 points. If he wanted to raise the value of Rimuru to level 6, he would need 112,500 alliance dollars. Just thinking about this number gave him a headache. He did not want Super Rich's herbs, even if they were given for free, as it was not natural for him to take benefits from others for no reason. Moreover, 100 herbs did not mean much to Rimuru, so there was no need to take them. I want to enter the dungeon. Soon, Lorne stood before the dungeon manager and stated his intentions. Young adventurer, please choose the difficulty of the dungeon. After saying that, a selection panel appeared in front of Lorne. Difficulties were divided into easy, hard, hell, and nightmare. Easy mode and hard mode, all level 10 players could try them countless times. However, players could only enter the hell or nightmare once. After completing either difficulty, they could not attempt to clear the other difficulty. Without hesitation, Lorne said, I choose nightmare. Hearing this choice, the manager could not help but be shocked. He immediately advised, the Valley of the Dead is filled with dangers. Young adventurer, I advise you to wait until you are strong enough before exploring. No need. I have enough confidence in my strength. Please send me into the dungeon. All right, seeing that Lorne was so adamant, the manager no longer advised him. He entered the IDs of Lorne and the others and activated the teleportation circle. In the next moment, with everyone watching, an indigo light rose up, and Lorne and the others disappeared. The history of the Divine Realm mainly revolved around the war between the Dark Abyss and the Empire Alliance. They represented the two most powerful forces in the world. As for other races, such as elves, titans, orcs, they were attached to the two major forces. For their own purposes, they made a choice between light and darkness. The Valley of the Dead contained the scouts of the Dark Abyss that infiltrated the Empire. They lurked in special spatial cracks. Apart from hiding, they would also bewitch the surrounding neutral races and destroy the peace and stability of the Empire from within. After they entered the dungeon, they immediately entered story mode that explained the information about the dungeon and the reason for the anomaly. At this moment, the scene began to transform. An ancient war scene appeared before everyone's eyes. This was a battlefield after a great battle. The surroundings were deathly silent, and the ruins covered countless corpses. The rotting war chariots were in ruins, and the rotting skeletons still wore mottled armor. The war banner that originally represented glory could no longer wave in the air. After an unknown period of time, a group of creatures from the Dark Abyss appeared on this sealed battlefield. They invaded this exiled battlefield and used their terrifying undead power to resurrect the dead soldiers and turn them into terrifying undead creatures. Seeing this, the scene changed again. By the time Lorne and the others could see again, they had officially entered the dungeon. Chapter 36, Is this pet something a player can summon? Ding! You have entered the Nightmare Dungeon Valley of the Dead. The notification sound pulled back their thoughts. Lorne looked over and saw the scene resembling the Dark Abyss. All traces of the battle had disappeared, and everything had changed. The sky and ground were pitch black. The white trees were like weathered bones. The poisonous pool on the ground was bubbling, and rotting corpses floated above. Seeing this, Twinkle Rose and the others silently reduced their sense of smell and followed behind Lorne. On a hill not far ahead, a large number of monsters appeared. They were undead that had been awakened and were currently wandering aimlessly with heavy swords in their hands. It's different from the hard dungeon. At the side, Twinkle Rose explained, the hard dungeon requires us to stay in one area and resist the attacks of the monsters. There are a total of 10 waves. After killing one wave of monsters, you can obtain 10% of the dungeon's progress. What appeared in front of them was the dark creature's base. The way to explore the dungeon was to destroy all the monster camps. It was different from guarding the base. However, Twinkle Rose knew the characteristics of the monsters ahead. She cautiously unsheathed her sword and said, "Those monsters are undead swordsmen. They have high attack power and can use sword charge. Everyone should pay attention to where they stand, especially you." At the end, Twinkle Rose glanced at Super Rich. Super Rich felt deep malice, but he could not refute it, because his strength was indeed very poor. He might really be killed by an unknown attack in the chaotic battle. As the beautiful guild leader spoke, Lorne also looked at the attributes of the monsters. Undead Swordsman. Quality, Elite. Level, 10. HP, 1600/1600. Physical attack, 120 to 150. Defense, 50. Skills, Heavy Sword Slash, Sword Charge, Undead Body, Berserk Blood. Introduction: the soldiers who died during the war were reawakened by the evil forces and became terrifying undead. They wandered aimlessly in the valley, resisting all intruders. Even the guards were elite monsters. The Nightmare Dungeon was indeed special. Moreover, a level 10 elite monster actually had 4 skills. It was really shocking. Especially the last 2 skills, they made the teammates behind Lorne feel fear. Undead Body made it immune to 10% of damage. Berserk Blood increased attack speed by 10 to 25% and also gave the life leech effect. The lower the health, the higher the buff of this skill. This kind of monster got stronger and stronger as they fought. It required a lot of skill for the players. If they were not careful, they might be wiped out. The members could not help but look at Lorne. They all wanted to know what his pets were like. But at that moment, Twinkle Rose and the others rubbed their eyes in shock. After Lorne waved his staff, a huge summoning array appeared. In the light, there was a huge bull-headed monster with an axe in its hand and a humanoid monster that looked like a mech. It had 2 extremely long sickle arms and looked very technological. Could that really be a robot? Although they were mentally prepared, what Twinkle Rose saw still exceeded her expectations. One of the night players in the team almost had his eyes pop out. He was clearly shocked by this scene. At this moment, the light dissipated, and a powerful Minotaur monster appeared before everyone's eyes. Last night, the giant axe Minotaur had appeared before everyone, so everyone could understand. However, the other Death Scythe Mantis had refreshed everyone's world view. Its metal shell and sickle-like arms were already astonishing enough, but the most strange thing was its way of moving. It could stand on 2 legs. It was unbelievable. Is this pet something a player can summon? Several players had such questions. At that moment, Lorne gave the order to attack. The Death Scythe Mantis collided with a monster. The undead swordsman also roared. The animosity between a monster and a pet was triggered even from a distance. It charged forward angrily, the heavy sword in its hand raised high. However, before it could attack, the Death Scythe Mantis attacked first. Its 2 sharp blades waved quickly, and several reflected lights instantly blossomed in the air. Continuous slash. -281. -281. -281. -281. -281. A series of damage values appeared, dealing 1,405 points of damage. With one more attack, he could directly kill this elite monster in front of him. Clang! The undead swordsman's great sword also struck the body of the death scythe mantis, but the blade only dealt 9 points of damage, as if striking metal. Clearly, the monster's damage did not break through its defense. The dead scythe mantis's defense was as high as 175 points. It was impossible to break such a defense with just the attack of the undead swordsman. When the axe of the giant axe minotaur fell, the entire skeleton of the undead swordsman was torn apart, turning into a pile of powder that was blown by the wind. The entire battle took less than 2 seconds. From behind, Twinkle Rose stared in shock at the battle. The undead swordsman, who she had thought to be so powerful, had been slain in a single breath? How was this possible? The teammates behind her also looked ahead in shock. Only Super Rich glanced at everyone mockingly, as if saying, "See? If you don't believe in our leader, it's because you're short-sighted." While everyone was stunned, Lorne was lost in thought. He wondered if he should create another pet. The undead swordsman was an elite monster with excellent attributes. If he were to use the blood-soaked rusted iron sword in his bag to fuse it, he believed that the final monster would be extremely powerful. There were also the undead heart and the unknown light bone. They seemed to be suitable for the undead creatures. However, there was only one set of these materials. If he used it too early, there would be no suitable materials when he encountered rare undead creatures. With that in mind, he put aside his thoughts and followed his pets deeper into the valley. Chapter 37, New Material Found. It's only the second day of the server launch, how is he so strong already? Didn't they say that summoners are the weakest class? That's not right. Did we enter the wrong game? What a terrifying pet! Its single attack output is as high as 400 plus. Seeing the undead monster before them killed, several of their teammates began to doubt their eyes. They did not expect this. They were all level 10 players, why was he so different from them? Did he have the aura of a protagonist? Impossible. This was not some random web novel. The few of them were speechless. However, in the next second, something that made them even more speechless happened. Under the command of Tyrant, the mantis pet no longer attacked the monsters. Instead, it began running through the entire valley. Along the way, it made a loud sound, attracting all the monsters nearby. My God, is he mad? Twinkle Rose stood rooted to the ground, her beautiful eyes staring at the 100 or so monsters in front of her in shock. That was a group of elite monsters. In there, every undead swordsman was an elite monster with powerful attributes and all of them had their own life leech abilities. He had gathered more than 100 such monsters. Was he seeking his own death? Watch carefully. My leader's methods are not something you can imagine. Super Rich stood proudly at the side, not hiding his admiration for Tyrant. Your leader. Twinkle Rose gave him a disdainful smile. Don't worry, your leader will be cut down by the monsters soon enough. Remember to compensate me. Although she also admitted that Tyrant was powerful, the monsters in front of her were not simple. There were more than 100 elite monsters. Not to mention a player, even a boss might not be able to block more than 100 slashes at once. Roar! 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 In the valley, the undead swordsmen who had discovered the intruder let out hoarse roars. They held their swords and began chasing after the death scythe mantis, threatening to mince the bold intruder to pieces. Unfortunately, the slow-witted undead could only follow behind little mantis who was traveling at a high speed. They could not get close no matter what. Don't come close. I'll be right back. With that said, he led Rimuru into the fray. Behind them, Twinkle Rose and the others did not move. Even without Lorne's reminder, they would not have come close to such a terrifying battlefield. There were more than 100 monsters, and if the aggro was drawn to them, all of them would suffer. They would definitely be slashed to death. By this time, Lorne had entered the core battle. Rimuru, it's your turn to perform. Lorne touched the Slime King on his shoulder. He had not sent it out just now mainly to protect everyone. But as he slew the undead creatures, Lorne suddenly noticed that there were some undead archers hiding in the nearby woods. Archers were long-range attackers, and in Lorne's team, they just happened to lack long-range attackers. Therefore, he changed his strategy and began to draw all the monsters together, in order to prevent the other 4 teammates from approaching. Although there would be a day when people would discover that he had the monster merging simulator, he still wanted to hide this ability as much as possible. At the very least, he could not reveal his ability to others in less than 2 days. Slash. 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 Because of Rimuru drawing the aggro, the undead swordsmen used their swords to hack at it. The sharp edge easily cut through Rimuru's viscous body, and because there were so many monsters, more than a dozen swords slashed at it. But, interestingly, Rimuru's body was untouched. It had lost almost no health. -49. +20, healing. -47. +19, healing. -49. +20. A series of numbers appeared above Rimuru's head, but each time it was attacked, it regenerated some of its health, each dealing less than 30 points of damage. The range of the melee monsters was limited. There were no more than 10 that could hit Rimuru at one time. Of course, in order to attract the aggro of the monsters behind, Rimuru would take the initiative to rush into the center of the monsters and use its jumping skill to move back and forth among them. But even then, it did not take much damage. Each wave of attack might have only dealt 300 points, but that was all that mattered to Rimuru, who had 112,500 HP. At the very least, for a short period of time, Rimuru would be able to hold back the 100 or so monsters. Seizing the moment, Lorne led the Mantis and the Minotaur into the forest behind them. He quickly found an undead archer. This was also a group of soldiers who had died in the Empire. After being affected by the power of the undead, they stood up again. They were wearing rotting light armor and tattered hempen cloaks. There were 2 scarlet eyes on their indistinct faces. At this moment, they were holding a large bow and looked extremely hideous. Undead Archer. Grade, Bronze. Level, 10. HP, 1950/1950. Physical attack, 170 to 240. Defense, 60. Skills, Rapid Fire, Rain of Arrows, Power of the Undead, Frenzied Shooting. Introduction: the soldiers who died during the war were reawakened by the evil forces and became terrifying undead. They wandered aimlessly in the valley, resisting all intruders. Bronze-grade monster? That surprised him. At first, he thought that merging them would waste the materials in his bag. But not if it was a bronze monster. Although it was only an increase in quality, its attributes were much stronger than that of an elite. Without synthesis, it already had a limit of 240 attack points. If it was combined, how much would its strength increase? Perhaps more than 600 points. After all, even the Mantis had 490 attack points after reaching level 10. After merging the Undead Archer, its quality would definitely increase by another level. At that time, it might become a silver monster or even a boss. Thinking of this, Lorne was excited. He took a deep breath and commanded the Mantis to attack. Chapter 38, Merge. Fire of Death. Continuous Slash. Little Mantis quickly stepped forward and activated its skill. Immediately, an overwhelming sword light enveloped the monster. -275. -275. -275. -275. With a series of damage, the undead archer's health decreased by half. This was normal. Although the two were both bronze-grade monsters, Little Mantis had been enhanced by the synthesis. Both its health and attack power completely crushed the undead archer. Moreover, the mantis moved much faster than the undead archer. In a situation where it could not quickly pull away, the assassin was far stronger than the archer. Thus, it could be seen that the entire battle was practically one-sided. Within a few rounds, the small mantis reduced its health to less than 5%. Lorne stepped forward and activated the merging simulator. Ding! Are you sure you want to use the monster undead archer as the prototype material? Please confirm other materials. Unwrapping the sack, Lorne fell silent. There were now 4 available materials in its bag. The blood-soaked rusted iron sword was a material that could not be used here. The dried undead heart was a special material that Lorne planned to keep for the final boss of the dungeon. Therefore, he only had 2 choices now. Unknown light bone or continuous burning flame. Due to the fact that it was not easy to obtain the materials, Lorne believed that using only one material to transmute them was the safest solution. After all, the speed at which pets were replaced was very fast, and using too many materials would be a waste. As for which one to use? There was already an answer in Lorne's mind. Unknown light bone could be used at the same time as the other 2 materials. However, continuous burning flame was different from other materials. So the answer was obvious. Continuous burning flame. Lorne made his choice. Ding! A prototype material and a body part material have been confirmed. The synthesis formula is, undead archer, plus, continuous burning flame, equals. The cost is 1 gold coin. Would you like to merge? The formula appeared and there was a hint of joy on Lorne's face. The cost of synthesis was 1 gold coin, which meant that the final product would possess a higher quality. The greatest possibility was silver grade. At this moment, Lorne wished for a miracle to happen. After all, when Rimuru was first created, it only cost 5 gold coins. The final product was a bronze rank boss. If he were to weigh it using the price, Lorne had some hope of obtaining a boss pet now. Thinking of this, Lorne became even more excited. As he chose to confirm, a familiar light enveloped the 2 materials. In the complicated magic circle, the prototype material and body part were magically fused. When the light vanished, what appeared before him was an undead in a black cloak. Black flames burned on its body, making it impossible to see its true appearance. But overall, one could still clearly see the changes in its body. For example, the mottled and rotting armor started to glow with brilliance following the enhancement of the monster's quality. Fire patterns were engraved on the armor and longbow, and they were glowing faintly. The overall appearance was very different from ordinary undead archers. At the same time, a pleasant reminder sounded in his ear. Ding! Congratulations on obtaining the silver monster, Fire of Death. Fire of Death, contract possible. Grade, Silver. Level, 1, 0/1500. HP, 2100/2100. Physical attack, 180 to 260. Defense, 70. Superiority, 90%. Skill, Rapid Fire, attacks a single target with 2 to 6 arrows fired at an extremely fast speed. Each arrow will deal 90% damage. Skill, Fire of Death, Rain of Arrows, fire countless arrows at the target location, 10 times 10 yards, forming a rain of arrows to cover the area. It will cause 100% magic damage to all targets in the area and inflict a burning effect, all healing effects reduced by half. Skill, Fire of Death, all attacks deal an additional 20% magic damage to the target. Skill, Frenzied Shooting, after killing the target, it will receive 1% critical strike chance, 3% attack speed, and 5% critical strike effect. Maximum, 10 stacks. Duration, 20 seconds. Introduction: the undead awakened by the evil power, under special circumstances, has been greatly enhanced, becoming an even more terrifying undead flame. After combining with the flames, the undead archer had indeed evolved into a silver monster. Although it was not a boss, Lorne was not disappointed. Instead, he was pleasantly surprised. It was because he did not expect the silver monster that had been created to be so powerful. Although Fire of Death was only level 1, its attributes were already much higher than a level 10 undead archer. Not only that, but its skills had also undergone tremendous changes. Among them, Fire of Death Rain of Arrows changed from the original 80% physical damage to 100% magic damage. The range changed from the original 8x8 to 10x10 yards. The area of effect was greatly enhanced. Secondly, Power of the Undead had become Fire of Death. The effect went from increasing 50 attack power to dealing an additional 20% magic damage per attack. Without a doubt, the latter was more effective than the former. In addition, it was magic damage. When a physical archer received magical damage, it would deal greater overall damage. No matter how thick the armor, it would still deal considerable damage. Of course, in Lorne's opinion, this was not the strongest skill of the Fire of Death. It was only truly powerful after killing 10 targets. At that time, it would obtain 10% critical strike chance, 30% attack speed, and 50% critical strike effect. Under such ferocious buffs, could any monster of the same level defeat it? The monsters produced by dungeons are indeed different. I suppose I should replace the Minotaur too. Lorne glanced at the nearby undead swordsman. These powerful life leech monsters were not so easily found outside the dungeon. However, the undead swordsmen here were still too ordinary. Elite monsters were not bad, but Lorne had a higher goal. He wanted a bronze-grade undead swordsman and used it to create a powerful silver-grade pet. There's no hurry. I've just started tackling the dungeon. Lorne felt that there had to be a stronger undead swordsman deeper in the valley. When the time came, he would not waste the iron sword material in his bag. With that in mind, Lorne did not hesitate anymore and returned to the battlefield with his pets. Chapter 39, Tyrant. You scoundrel! At this moment, Rimuru continued to use its powerful vitality to fight the hundreds of creatures. However, it had suffered too many attacks and had lost 50% of its health. Seeing this, Lorne immediately controlled the Fire of Death to join the battle. Summoners could control their pets from afar, but because masters could not be too far away from their pets, they had to pay attention to their own safety when controlling their pets. This was a very challenging operation for a player. Lorne was very talented at multitasking, so he did not find it difficult to do it. On the contrary, this humanoid monster made him feel very comfortable, and the effect of controlling it in combat was also much better. Lorne controlled the Fire of Death to draw the bow in its hand. At this moment, a ball of black flames suddenly shot up, making the entire arrow look like a fire snake. This was the effect of the Fire of Death skill. Accompanied by this, it would cause an additional 20% magic damage with this attack. Swish! The arrow left its hand and struck the undead swordsman's joint. -780. Gasp! Lorne gasped at the high damage. This arrow dealt 780 points of damage. This amount of damage made Lorne quickly check the combat panel. Only then did he understand everything. It turned out that the arrow had hit the monster's weak spot and had fortunately produced a critical hit effect. In the Divine Realm, the damage amplification of weakness was random between 150% to 200% damage, while the normal critical damage was 200%. These two effects could be triggered at the same time, so it created the scene just now. Unfortunately, they were too far away. Twinkle Rose and the others stood on the other side of the swarm and did not see this astounding scene. Roar! With one arrow, the undead swordsman's health dropped by half. The monstrous creature immediately turned and roared, its gaze fixed on the one attacking it. However, before it could counterattack, Lorne had already unleashed his skill. Bolts of black fire shot forth from the bow. This was the rapid fire skill. It could randomly fire 2 to 6 arrows at once. That one strike by Lorne had directly triggered the maximum number of arrows. The 6 arrows formed a straight line and hit the undead swordsman consecutively. Instant kill. Fire of death, rain of arrows. After slaying one of the creatures, Lorne fired into the sky. In the next moment, countless burning arrows descended from the sky and bombarded the ground like cannon fire. All the monsters within 10 times 10 yards were hit, and the scene became a sea of flames. -191. -47, magic damage. -189. -45, magic damage. -187. Hundreds of damage numbers floated in the air. It was a spectacular sight. Unfortunately, Fire of Death was only level 1. Its attributes had not grown, so the final damage was not very high. But to Lorne's surprise, the undead creatures had no magic resistance. The effect of the skill Fire of Death was especially outstanding here. Coupled with the huge range of skills, a rain of arrows directly hit dozens of monsters. The total damage was more than 10,000 points. F***CK, our leader has made a big move. Not far away, Super Rich let out a cry. The fiery rain of arrows was like a cannonball, giving people a huge visual impact. He could not even believe that it was a player's skill. Oh my god! Twinkle Rose's eyes widened. As the guild leader, she had seen many hidden occupations, but she had never seen such a powerful skill. Moreover, there was no archer among Tyrant's pets, right? Could it be? He had even more pets. Swish! 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 While the others were still in shock, Lorne began leading the horde of monsters through the valley. He controlled his pets to attack while ensuring his own safety. Because it was a silver monster, it had high agility and movement speed, so the pulling of monsters was relatively simple. If not for the undead swordsman's charge skill, Lorne would have been able to fight much easier. Ding! Battle notification, congratulations on killing a target. You have received a layer of frenzied shooting effect. After killing 10 targets, Lorne's frenzied shooting successfully stacked to the 10th layer. The final increase was, critical strike chance plus 10%, attack speed plus 30%, critical strike effect plus 50%. He could clearly sense that after reaching 10 stacks, his attack speed was much faster and the probability of him triggering a critical hit was also higher. The most terrifying thing was the damage after the critical hit. The critical hit effect plus 50% meant that the damage after the critical hit was increased to 250%. If he hit the monster's weak spot at this time, the final damage would exceed 1000 points. Against such damage, the undead swordsman could do nothing. And so, as he pulled, Lorne fired, keeping the distance between himself and the creature about 20 yards, ensuring his absolute safety. At the same time, arrows burst from his hands. Under the high output, the hundreds of undead swordsmen were wiped out in less than 10 minutes of battle. The drop rate of monsters in the dungeon was very high, and at this moment, the ground was filled with glowing spoils of war. Lorne did not clear these things, but carried the longbow and left the area. Before leaving, he left a few words for his teammates not far away. Pick up the loot. After clearing everything, quickly catch up to me. With that, he walked towards Super Rich and took the rest of the EXP herbs he had. Then, he held the bow and walked deeper into the valley. Hearing that, Twinkle Rose and the others became excited. To a player, picking up equipment was definitely the most interesting thing in the entire game, especially when they could see high-grade equipment. However, just as Twinkle Rose was about to pick up a bronze equipment from the ground before the others, she was stunned. After the equipment was picked up, it disappeared. At the same time, she heard an unfriendly reminder. Ding! You have picked up the equipment skull armor, bronze. According to the distribution rules of the team, the loot will belong to leader Tyrant. Pfft! The beautiful guild leader spat out blood from anger. She stood on the spot and gritted her teeth, cursing, "Tyrant! You scoundrel!" Chapter 40, The Strange Creature in the Poisonous Pool. Ding! Congratulations on obtaining bone armor, bronze. Congratulations on obtaining bronze coin x50. Congratulations on obtaining bone wrist guard, white iron. Congratulations on obtaining skill book morale, grade E. At this moment, countless information appeared on Lorne's interface. Most of them were bronze coins, something that the monster would definitely drop. In this dungeon, an undead swordsman would drop 80 to 100 bronze coins. According to the rough estimation, this wave of monsters would bring him 80 silver coins, equivalent to 4,000 alliance dollars. In addition to the bronze equipment and skill books, the total income earned by Lorne would be more than 50,000. However, it should be known that Lorne had only been in the dungeon for less than 20 minutes. Earning 50,000 alliance dollars in 20 minutes should be enough to surpass the income of 99.99% of people in the world. Indeed, the game dungeon was the best place to make a fortune. Unfortunately, such a good place could only be cleared once. Smiling, Lorne shook his head and took out the EXP herbs he had just obtained. Originally, he did not need these herbs, but now that he had Fire of Death, he had to first raise the level of this pet. Otherwise, it would be rather difficult for a level 1 pet to quickly clear the Nightmare Dungeon. After eating all the herbs, he gained a total of 15,700 experience points. He directly leveled up his pet. Ding! You used 1,500 experience points to raise your pet Fire of Death, Small Artillery, to level 2. You used 4,500 experience points to raise your pet to level 3. You used 7,500 experience points to raise your pet to level 4. 3 consecutive rays of light landed and its level increased by 3. Although its level was still not high, the improvement it received was not small. Fire of Death, Small Artillery. Grade, Silver. Level, 4. 0/10,500. HP, 3675/3675, 1575. Physical attack, 315 to 455, 135195. Defense, 122, 52. Superiority, 90%. Owner, Tyrant. Skills, Rapid Fire, Fire of Death, Rain of Arrows, Fire of Death, Frenzied Shooting. Introduction. Small Artillery was the name that Lorne had given it, a glorious title for the new guy. As for its attributes, it had indeed improved significantly. At this moment, the upper limit of its attack had reached 455 points, which was even higher than what he had expected. If Small Artillery was raised to level 10, its attack limit would be very close to 1,000 points. Just the thought of it was thrilling. After checking the level of Small Artillery, Lorne was in a good mood. At the same time, he stepped into a basin. This place was very similar to a coliseum. It was surrounded by mountain peaks, and in the center stood hundreds of monsters. The types were mainly undead swordsmen, and there were a few undead archers with long bows mixed in. As usual, Lorne simply checked the monsters' attributes and found that although the monsters' attributes had increased a little, their level was still at 10. This should be the restriction of the beginner village. The players could not go above level 10 in the beginner village, so the monsters were naturally restricted in the same way. Ignoring the creatures, he quickly surveyed his surroundings. Finally, his gaze focused on a rock gap. As a map with such a high concentration of monsters, there must be a way for the players to win. Most maps that possessed a challenge would provide some subtle help with the terrain. If one was strong enough, one could rely on it to complete the impossible. That gap seemed to be the key location in the entire map. Little Mantis, go attract the monsters, Lorne ordered. After the monster made way, he led the others through carefully and quickly arrived at the gap between the rocks. It was a pocket-like space that could be guarded as long as the entrance was blocked. But it was not easy to block the entrance. To make use of the terrain, one had to satisfy certain special conditions. First, one needed a powerful tank capable of withstanding a dozen monster attacks. Otherwise, once the entrance was taken, the DPS hiding in the back would immediately be revealed. Second, one need a strong source of DPS. It would be best if they could quickly clear out all the monsters in front. Otherwise, if the pressure on the tank was too great, it could easily collapse. This was a huge challenge for any other team. But to Lorne, it was simple. With Rimuru around, the tank's mission could be completely handed over to it, and the position of the DPS could be handed over to the level 4 small artillery. It had 455 attack power and could deal tons of damage to monsters. Rimuru, become larger and block the entrance. Lorne ordered. As a bronze grade boss, Rimuru could change its size to a maximum of more than 1 meter wide. This size could block most of the entrance. As for the gap beside it, Little Mantis directly blocked the hole. It had a high defense of 175 points and could easily complete this mission. Roar! At this moment, hundreds of undead swordsmen surrounded him, completely sealing off his retreat. What he had to do now was clear out all the monsters before Rimuru was killed. This was not difficult at all. Fire of death, rain of arrows. Arrows were tossed into the air. When they landed, they turned into burning meteors that dealt a powerful blow to all the monsters in the vicinity. Before leveling up, the damage of the rain of arrows was at 180 plus each. Now that it was level 4, the damage of the rain of arrows was directly increased to 390 plus. The total output had more than doubled. Then, under the continuous bombardment of small artillery, the undead swordsmen fell one after another, dropping a lot of loot. With a roar of fury, the creatures slashed at Rimuru. The result was obvious. They could not deal any effective forms of damage to it. Even if Little Mantis next to it did not have much health, Rimuru could heal it. Furthermore, there was also the Minotaur beside them who could temporarily take over the task. This way, the entire situation was completely under control. In less than 10 minutes, more than 200 undead swordsmen fell to the ground. Most of the damage came from the rain of arrows from small artillery. Each wave could cover 60 to 70 monsters. 4 waves could directly shoot down a large number of them. If other players saw him killing monsters like this, they would probably quit the game. This was simply too absurd. However, Lorne was very calm. He did not even pay attention to the equipment on the ground. His gaze shifted to the path ahead. At the end of the path, there seemed to be a huge poisonous pool. It was green in color and was currently bubbling with poison. The center of the poisonous pool was also churning non-stop, like lava spewing out from the ground. As he wondered, suddenly, a huge tail flung out from the poisonous pool.